do and your heart for sure, but something that the common man cannot relate to. We don't relate these two things. Now, in our country, of course, I meet many people online. I meet many sick people, well people who want to lose weight. And I've seen an increasing amount of like anxiety, depression, insomnia. I mean, I talked to a 60-year-old lady and she said, I have no stress, so-called active stress. I have a happy family. I just cannot sleep at night, and it's like, it's not spoken about in our country. Like if an actress comes out and says she went through depression, it's like a taboo. It's like, oh my God, there's something wrong with her, and still a lot of us, maybe milder versions of it, not depression as in not being able to get out of bed, but milder versions of depression, definitely insomnia, definitely anxiety, the fear and the anxiety, which is very, very evident today, for whatever reason. Now, how does these factors, obviously I look at it like mental factors, right? Like a sleep or fear, anxiety, depression. How does it relate to immunity? Does it affect my immunity? Does it not affect it? What is your take on this?
So, Pramila, you've really sort of thrown the spotlight on the elephant in the room, I would say. It's there, it's been around, and it's gotten worse. I can tell you very honestly, post the pandemic, the incidents reported, the way I see in practice, I continue to have a very busy practice in spite of the lockdown, and my specialty being what it is. There's not much elective work. Most of what we do is borderline emergency. I see an explosion in the prevalence of anxiety, depression, insomnia, all these disorders that you identified. And you've asked the million-dollar question, how is it connected to immunity? It plays a very, very big role in immunity. And let me just illustrate how this happens. Whenever you're stressed, you're anxious, you're not sleeping correct, these are all interconnected. One of the things that happens is there is increased amounts of the stress hormone called cortisol. And one of the effects of cortisol is to suppress some aspects of our immune response. It's a common experience, for example, amongst teenagers, when they're stressed, the acne breaks out. Or when you're stressed, you have After's ulcers. Or when you're stressed, your cold sores kind of come out just before an exam. Or if you've had an emotionally disturbing news delivered to you. And we've often also seen in life, I've seen this, bereavement, loss of a loved one, and a year later, someone is diagnosed with cancer. So there is a big relationship between mental health disorders and immunity. And the connection happens at multiple planes. But what is important to understand is, unless we address the mental health issues, we are not going to have optimum immunity. You cannot have a worried, stressed, sleep-deprived person have good immunity. That's completely counterintuitive. It doesn't happen that way. In fact, one of the best ways to have good immunity is to improve mental health. And some very simple things that one can do really to get in moving in that direction. Of course, I will dwell in some detail upon it later. But answer to your question is a very strong connection. It is well understood medically, but unfortunately, a typical office practice situation, there is not much time one can really devote to identifying these. But yes, if you're not sleeping okay, if you're not getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, if you're stressed, you're anxious, you're worked up, it's bad news for immunity. It definitely means that your health and wellness is not where it should be.
Wow. And talking on that, because we can talk on a problem, but we want some solution. That's why we talk about it today, and no one better than you, because you not only practice medicine, but you, for your personal life, I have seen over the years, you practice wellness, right? And that's why I'm so intrigued by how you can know medicine so well, but still know prevention is better than cure. And that's why I have so much respect for what you do and how you conduct your personal health too. So having said that, give us some ideas. I remember long time ago when we had a chat and you said you do some kind of meditation. like, is that good for mental health? And, we won't dwell on a particular topic, but give us some solutions that we can do to kind of de-stress. I mean, recently I'm reading this fantastic book on breathing, and I just take, I mean, it could be coincidence, but it's a week. And I'm reading it and I practice the breathing, simple breathing techniques, nothing, that you go up to the Himalayas and, nothing like that. Simple things for 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. And I have seen my sleep. I always had good sleep, but the quality of sleep has improved, right? So tell us some things that we can, that will help us deal with these mental things that actually affect our immunity. So what are some things that you practice or you think is good for us?
Pramila, I have always spoken about the 4 pillars of wellness, and I think these 4 pillars of wellness are universal, whether it comes to neurological wellness, whether it comes to enhancing immunity. So I'm going to answer your question along the lines of the 4 pillars of neurological wellness. First and foremost is exercise. Now, it's unfortunate because there's a huge misunderstanding that you need to be like a triathlon champion to have, the benefits of exercise for good health. The answer, in fact, Dr. Shekhar, who's a dear friend and colleague, sports and a rehab specialist, he just talks about some very powerful 20 to 25 minutes a day. It's as simple as that. Just get moving. If you're not, even if you have a very busy sort of stressed lifestyle, you're locked in now in the circumstances that we're in right now, you can actually do floor exercises for 20 to 25 minutes a day. So exercise and movement is a very, very important part of maintaining wellness and enhancing immunity. The second major pillar of wellness is nutrition. I'll dwell upon nutrition in some more details, so I'll just keep it for the end. Of course, it's one of the most important things one does. The third thing, as you correctly pointed out, breathing and relaxation. So meditation, for example, one of the aspects of meditation, which is basically sort of disconnecting and from being deliberate and conscious to being relaxed and aware. These are kind of counterintuitive. One of the first steps to train a beginner into meditation is breathing. And breathing plays a very, very important role. Breathing techniques, especially avoiding mouth breathing. There's a lot one can learn to be focused upon breathing through the nose, plays a very, very important role in calming you down and address stress. So I would consider breathing techniques and meditation in one sort of basket. The power of association, the kind of people we associate with. I mean, if you look at the headlines today, the news today, the media, it's so toxic and so negative. I'm not saying we should not be informed of what's happening in the world, but we don't need to be continuously bombarded with, toxic, repeat headlines about what's wrong with the world. There's so much that is good with the world. And let's focus on that. And let's also deliberate and connecting with the right kind of people, the right kind of who have a growth mindset, to enhance the opportunities, and that kind of a positive association also plays a very significant role in attenuating stress and enhancing immunity. I would like to take about 2 minutes to talk about nutrition, Pramila, because it's something that's very close to my heart. I practice it. I have learned so much about nutrition and wellness and practical aspects of nutrition and wellness from you. If you look at the way we have, the majority of us, if you look at the kind of diets we have a carb-dense diet. We're consuming about 250 to 300 grams of carbs a day, and you require about 70 to 100 or 120. So a lot of carbs, and we're terribly protein deficient. About 90% of people have, one or the other degree of protein deficiency. Just to illustrate, good Indian vegetarian diet with milk products, etc., will give you about 20-25 grams of protein a day. A good Indian non-vegetarian diet will give you about 35 grams of protein a day. As per the latest revised guidelines for optimum health, you require about 1.4 gram per kilogram body weight. It's a basic requirement, which means every one of us who weighs about 60 kgs requires about 80 to 90 grams of protein a day. And we're not getting that at all from our food. And if you want to try and get all of this from diet alone, it would mean consuming about, one egg is about 6 grams of protein. That is if you're consuming the yolk. So to get 90 grams, just do the math. 15 eggs a day, every member of the family. Humanly impossible. So good quality supplement is very, very important. Similarly, looking at the other major macronutrient, which is the good fat, the omega-3 fat. Again, a big misconception that having a handful of chia seeds will give you all the omega-3. No, it doesn't, because you not only need good quality omega-3, you require the right ratio of EPHA and DHEA for optimal health benefits. It only then comes from marine sources. And which marine source? Now, again, what most people don't understand is there is a difference between offal-derived fish oil and flesh-derived fish oil. Offal-derived, which is the waste of the fish, which is where 90% of the supplements that are available in the market come from, they're at high risk of contamination from dioxins and heavy metals. So using a good quality, supplement, for example, the Nutralite Salmon Omega, that makes a lot of sense. There are big deficiencies when it comes to nutrition, the macronutrients, the micronutrients, the 13 vitamins and 11 minerals that the World Health Organization talks about for optimal health. I mean, just highlight chromium. Now, chronic chromium deficiency is one of the reasons why we are the diabetes capital of the world. Vitamin C. Now, when I went to medical school, I was taught we required 40 milligrams of vitamin C a day. Today, we realize what a folly that is. I mean, 40 milligrams of vitamin C will prevent you from dropping dead from scurvy. If you want to have good immunity, you want to have positive health, you want to turn back, the oxidant load in the system, you require at least about, 800 to 1,000 milligrams of good quality, organically sourced vitamin C. And what is the challenge to getting vitamin C? Now, vitamin C is a very unstable compound. It degenerates fairly rapidly when exposed to light and air, and it's completely destroyed on cooking. So if you want to get the amounts of vitamin C that we speak about from natural sources, you're looking at consuming something like 30 to 40 oranges a day. Humanly impossible to do. Again, the Nutralite Vitamin C Cherry Plus, I'm really excited because they have managed to get us organic vitamin C in a sustained release manner, which ensures that you take the pill, the vitamin C from a natural source is available, for our requirements. And visceral obesity, it is I think it's a bigger pandemic than the coronavirus pandemic here in India, because it's across all age groups, it's across caste and class, across regions. We have this unfortunate tendency to visceral obesity. Pet ka charbi, like people generally understand it. You have stick insect-like arms and legs, and you have protuberant abdomen. Very, very toxic. And there is a strong association between visceral obesity, lifestyle diseases, what we call syndrome X, high blood pressure, diabetes, hypertension, impaired immune responses. In fact, there are scientific studies that have pointed out that obesity is an independent risk factor for bad outcomes from COVID-19 infection. In the pandemic, we've discovered that people who are obese, especially those who have visceral obesity, have a poorer outcome. They have poorer lung capacity. They have poorer immune response. So we need, to optimize our weight. We have this phenomenal K45 program that you have curated, Pramila, and I think it's a metabolic hack that literally turns the clock back on aging by getting rid of visceral fat, enhancing muscle mass and bone mass. It really turns the clock back on aging. And today we understand that age is not just a number. It is an index of the health of your organ systems. So if you can get rid of visceral obesity, if you can increase your muscle mass, your bone mass, get rid of your fatty liver, you can literally turn the clock back on aging. I know for a fact that you enjoy a metabolic age which is at least 25 years less than your biological age. And that's very powerful. In my own family, I have seen my 76-year-old mother, literally turn the clock back on aging on the BK45 program. So there's so much to be done with nutrition, with exercise, small little things, small daily disciplines, exercise, nutrition, breathing and meditation, the right kind of associations. Once you put all of this into place, stress levels come down, the feeling that you're in control, plays such an important role. And once again, to throw the spotlight a little bit on vulnerable groups. Women are a vulnerable group. The physiological demands on a woman are higher because of pregnancy, of lactation, of the monthly menstrual cycles, etc. And women, unfortunately, in our country tend to be culturally a neglected group. And in fact, their nutritional requirements are higher and culturally they're neglected. So there's a bigger gap that needs to be addressed. For example, PCOS. Now, polycystic ovarian disease, it's another sort of silent epidemic that's everywhere. Just 2 to 3 kgs of weight loss and you can literally reverse several symptoms of where you can enhance fertility. And there is a well understood association between this condition called insulin resistance. That insulin resistance is connected to visceral fat. Insulin resistance is also connected to impaired immune responses. Insulin resistance is also associated with polycystic ovarian disease. So everywhere, the common denominator seems to somehow come towards visceral obesity. So if you ask me, there's one thing that we can work on to really, set the clock back on aging, go to a higher level of wellness and energy. I think it would be getting rid of visceral fat, and then, immunity comes on board almost as an automatic accomplishment.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I'm so in sync with what you're saying right now, because I mean, I got two good questions, and there are many questions, but I will actually ask you these two questions because these questions are so dear to my heart. I have two little girls, 11 and 8, and I just look at this next generation that's growing up, and pandemic or no pandemic, very little exercise, a lot more exposure to junk food, definitely no supplementation, right? Because we tend to think, like Aditi Iyer says, is low immunity hereditary? You see, so a lot of misconceptions about immunity, and a lot of times the fear of parents giving supplements to their children, because I take the Nutrilite vitamin C too, and I try to explain to parents it's in a tablet form for convenience, right? Like medication, brain disorder medication comes in a tablet form for convenience, because the taste is, I'm sure, it's terrible. This is just acerola cherry. It's too sour, but this is just convenience, and that's why. But it's not medication. But whatever, So is low immunity hereditary? How come our children are falling sick so often? How come they have low immunity? And do our foods fall short? That you partly answered. Now, another one, Murugan asked, how come immunity is going down generation after generation? And it is the honest truth. I mean, I read these two questions and I say, oh my God, it is true. Let's wake up to the reality of this truth. So can you put some light on these two questions? I personally, as a mother, have understood that if there is a nutritional gap in my food, my children are eating from the same kitchen. There must be a nutritional gap in their food, right? Okay, their nutritional needs are not probably as high as mine, but very close to mine. They need the vitamin C, they need the protein, right? And they need the same type of minerals and vitamins because it's the same body. It's not like a human body and a monkey body, it's the same body, right? So I just rationalize it like that, right? And I have been, a fanatic about good food from a very young age, right? But also, I have understood the importance of supplements. Now, as a doctor, can you throw light on this for us, please?
Pramila, again, a very interesting question. One of the first things I learned in medical school, I'm very glad about that. I used to think of children as miniature adults. And when you learn, actually go to medical school, you realize that, human children are entirely different species. And they have huge nutritional requirements. In fact, if you look at the nutritional requirement per kilogram per day for a child, it is several folds higher than that of an adult. Be it protein, be it the good fat that we just spoke about, the micronutrients like vitamin C that we just discussing, or even minerals, phytonutrients, antioxidants, everything, because the child is in a state of growth and development. I will answer that first question about whether, poor immunity is hereditary. Emphatic no. There is a microscopic minority of hereditary that result in compromised immunity. They're so uncommon that they do not merit discussion on a forum like this. So I would generally like to address the concern of a parent about whether he or she thinks that the child is weak and sickly because they were weak. Here is a chance for us to break that cycle. As you correctly pointed out, the diet, the nutrition is also a little bit cultural. and a little bit understood and transmitted from one generation to the other. So there are some things about what we're doing traditionally that are not appropriate for the circumstances that we find in, which I think in some ways will also answer the second question. So let's look at what's happened in the last 50 to 60 years. The way in which food is being produced today is very, very different. There is chemical fertilizers, there is chemical preservatives, there is transport over long distances, there is storing for prolonged periods of time before it reaches the consumer. Like I know for a fact when I go to my ancestral home in Kerala and I look at the kind of fields and estates and plantations we have there, my grandparents had really organic food. It was freshly harvested, it was really diverse, and everything was really organic. There was hardly any contamination, hardly any pesticide use. Plus, they lived in an environment where there was practically no air pollution. They lived in a stress-free environment. So everything was different. Now, if I'm going to try and have, try to copy their diet in today's time and age where I live here in Mumbai, exposed to shocking levels of PM 2.5, stressful lifestyle, impaired sleep at night, a lot of stress, my body will not be able to cope. So we are in a new environment, we are in a new paradigm, and therefore we have to understand that what worked in the past has changed. Now, for little children today, particularly saddening. Why? Because very little exercise, as you correctly pointed out, they're locked in, they're not allowed to go home. Even when they were allowed to go out and play, they would prefer to, play on their video consoles and not actually go out and meet their friends and play the way I think I did when I was growing up. So that's a big change. The food that they eat, so much of junk, so much of food, so much of trans fat, so much of carbs, everything that is wrong for the little is reaching them from food and not enough of the right things. Now, I have, my little nephew at home, try making him eat broccoli. We know it's important for him. We know it's good for his health, but doesn't like the taste, and you can't force a child to eat. So how does one cover this huge gap, between the bad nutrition, the insufficient nutrition, the changed environment, the increased demand? We have to look at supplementation. And once again, the way I look at it, the supplement, though, of course, as you correctly pointed out, it looks like a tablet, it looks like a pill, but it is food. And especially when we speak of Neutralite, which I personally use and my entire family uses, and I have personally transitioned from chemical supplements of the quote highest quality that I used to buy from the US whenever I traveled to Neutralite, and I have seen such a phenomenal difference. Be it vitamin C, be it omega, be it protein, organic source, multivitamins for children, for any age group from Neutralite, huge difference in quality. Organic source supplements are better absorbed, better utilized, and without any toxic load to the liver and to the kidney. So it's an entirely different. And also, Pramila, we all have to understand one thing. I mean, I stand here as a doctor. I'm trained to diagnose and treat disease. Even as part of my medical training, I had absolutely no training in wellness prevention. I got interested in wellness and prevention because I saw incurable diseases in my specialty which could be prevented. And then I have learned practical wellness and supplementation and nutrition from you. So what I speak today is a little bit of what I have learned through reading outside of my medical curriculum. As interested in the wellness revolution, I've read so much about the importance of optimizing nutrition to ensure that we have optimal wellness and disease prevention. So it starts at the youngest age. We need to start with our little ones. We need to, supplement their diets because they're being exposed to all these toxins and they have much higher requirements than we do as adults. And the foundation for good immunity is laid in childhood. A childhood practice of exercise, a childhood practice of right eating, a childhood practice of resting enough, and a childhood practice of the right associations, the growth mindset and grit.
Wow. I mean, parents, listen to this wisdom and let's apply some of it. I mean, I have so much to learn being a parent, and really grateful to your time with us and just giving us so much practical information which we can apply. We also have this immunity week. We call it the immunity week, and today we have graciously, Dr. Nair has joined us. Tomorrow we have Dr. Rajshri, who is a PhD in molecular nutrition, and she is an expert on foods and so cellular nutrition, sorry, MS in clinical nutrition, MS in nutritional medicine, and she really, you want practical tips for what you can do at home, join us tomorrow. So just to end, I know we are actually finished our time, Dr. Nair, but I got the virus, my entire family got the virus, right? And I would like to think I had a strong mind, so I recovered faster. Does it play now, since we are talking to you and you know the mind better than any one of us, right? So I was sick in the body, and my mind was just like, get out of bed, get dressed, don't rest, but don't lay in bed all day. Since we're talking about the subject about depression, anxiety, just being pulled down, does it play any role, or it doesn't matter?
I think you asked a very important question, Pramila. Now, there's this entity called chronic fatigue syndrome, which is known to follow viral illnesses. It was first described after the flu pandemic in the past. And now with the coronavirus pandemic, this is a known association. Now, it's how you think. What happens is, after the viral infection of any kind, there is a certain compromise in your vitality, as we call it. But if you're going to kind of humor that low feeling by lying in bed, not doing anything, or that feeling of helplessness, the learned helplessness that sometimes gets cultivated because there's a little physical incapacitation, that is the fertile ground on which chronic fatigue syndrome can grow and develop. I am not recommending people who are recovering from a viral illness to go and try running a marathon. I know some people who try to do it. I strongly recommend you don't try such stunts. But what you did, Pramila, is particularly interesting. You did not stress yourself, but in your mind, you decided to get well, decided to get back in action. You told yourself, you started doing small daily disciplines to get back into routine. And I think that plays a fantastic role. It sends a signal to your mind that your body needs to now, get on with it. And of course, everything else that we spoke about today in terms of, nutritional supplementation, good rest, the right associations, and yes, a graded return to activity. So if you've been a marathoner before you felt sick, it could take up about 6 weeks to get back to that level of physical training. But you can always start after 2 to 3 weeks with little walks, a little stretching, what you did, when you were recovering from the infection yourself. And I think that is very, very powerful. And that is really the way to go.
Wow, thank you so much. I mean, we have come to our time. Now, this is like, in a second, you can answer this, because I know you're so good at this. Like, we're talking about supplements, what are the top 3 supplements, in your opinion, we need at this time?
Pramila, I would like to classify this into 2 things. One is what everyone needs, like a basic foundational. I think everyone needs to get their protein on board. I use all plant protein from Nutrilite. Of course, we need the multivitamin, and you need vitamin C and omega. This is like a basic thing. But I'm also a firm believer of some specialty supplements I personally use, especially those of us who are a little bit into exercise and endurance and who have to, do a lot of mental work. Ginseng. Very, very powerful. It really helps with energy, focus, concentration, and it's been a secret amongst the Buddhist monks in China, the Japanese masters. The other one that I'm very passionate about is CH balance, because we spoke about insomnia and low mood and balance. The herbs, ashwagandha and brahmi, and of course the basic supplementation, the protein, omega, the daily multivitamin, and of course the vitamin C cherry.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nair. I mean, I tried to squeeze in as much as I could. It's hard to get your time, but we are so grateful. Thank you so much for taking